Caitlin Clark just got into the most heated exchange we've seen all season, and she wasn't even playing. The Indiana Fever are spiraling out of control, their playoff hopes are crumbling, and there's one player who's been keeping them alive that nobody's talking about. But before we get to that drama, let me tell you something that's going to shock you about what really happened in that Golden State loss that has everyone pointing fingers. Look, I've watched this footage about 50 times, and what Caitlin Clark did to DeWanna Bonner during that Phoenix Mercury game was straight up legendary. This woman is sitting on the bench, dealing with her own injury struggles, and she's still the most passionate player on that court. The exchange happened during a heated moment in the game. Caitlin was clearly frustrated watching her team struggle, and when DeWanna Bonner started getting into it with one of the Fever players, Clark wasn't having it. She stood up, pointed right at Bonner, and you could see her mouth the words that had the entire arena buzzing.
Caitlin Clark is not shying away from making headlines because she had a heated exchange with DeWanna Bonner during this game. Now, the Indiana Fever did lose this game.
But here's what the mainstream media isn't telling you. This wasn't just some random outburst. This was a leader showing her team that she's got their backs, even when she can't be out there fighting with them. Caitlin Clark has been out for 19 consecutive games with a right groin injury, but her fire hasn't diminished one bit. The referees had to step in, players from both teams were getting involved, and you could feel the tension through the screen. But what impressed me most was how Clark handled it afterward. She didn't back down, she didn't apologize, she stood her ground. That's the kind of leadership this Fever team desperately needs. Now, let's talk about that Golden State game, because this loss was absolutely brutal for Indiana's playoff hopes. The Indiana Fever fell to the Golden State Valkyries 75-63, with the team shooting just 33.3% from the field and 6 for 30, 20% from three-point range. Those numbers are absolutely unacceptable for a team trying to make the playoffs. Ariel Powers led the team with 17 points and 4 rebounds, while Kelsey Mitchell added 14 points and 3 assists, but it wasn't enough. The Valkyries controlled this game from start to finish, and it exposed every weakness this Indiana team has been trying to hide all season. But here's the real problem the game was plagued by: clock malfunctions and technical issues. Yet instead of using these delays to regroup and find their rhythm, the Fever looked completely lost. A championship-caliber team uses those moments to their advantage. Indiana looked like they were playing their first game together. The defense was non-existent. I watched Golden State players get wide-open looks possession after possession. Where was the help defense? Where was the communication? It looked like 5 players playing individual basketball instead of a cohesive unit. And don't even get me started on the rebounding. Golden State was getting second and third chances, while Indiana players were standing around watching. That's coaching, that's preparation, and that's effort. All areas where this team is severely lacking right now. But you know what? Through all this chaos, there's been one player who has consistently shown up and delivered when it matters most: Lexie Hull. And I'm about to tell you why she deserves a max contract extension right now. While everyone's been focused on the drama and the injuries, Lexie Hull has been quietly putting together one of the most impressive seasons we've seen from a role player in recent WNBA history. She's shooting the lights out, playing lockdown defense, and showing the kind of clutch gene that you simply cannot teach. In that Phoenix game that everyone's talking about, Hull was one of the few bright spots. She was making the right plays, hitting her shots when they counted, and playing with the kind of intensity that used to define Indiana Fever basketball. This young woman has earned her stripes, and it's time for the organization to pay her accordingly. Here's what separates Hull from other players. She makes winning plays. It's not about the stats, it's about the moments when the game is on the line and you need someone to step up. Hull does that consistently, whether it's a crucial steal, a timely three-pointer, or just solid fundamental basketball, she delivers. I've been watching this league for years, and players like Hull are rare. She's got that it factor that you build championship teams around. While other players might disappear in big moments, Hull seems to thrive under pressure. The front office needs to recognize what they have in Hull and lock her up long-term. If they don't, some other team is going to snatch her up and make Indiana regret it for years to come. Mark my words, Lexie Hull is going to be a cornerstone player in this league for the next decade. Now we need to have a serious conversation about Stephanie White, because what we're seeing on the court is not acceptable. I've tried to be patient, I've tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, but these defensive performances are simply inexcusable. How do you allow a team to score 75+ points when your season is on the line? How do you watch your team shoot 20% from three-point range and not make adjustments? This is coaching, and right now, the coaching isn't getting the job done. Look at the numbers from that Phoenix game. That 5 Mercury players scored in double figures. 5. That's not just players having good games. That's a systematic defensive breakdown that starts with preparation and schemes. The rotations have been questionable, the timeout management has been poor, and there's no clear identity on either end of the floor. Indiana plays like they're making it up as they go along, and that falls squarely on the coaching staff. I understand that injuries have played a major role in this team's struggles. With Caitlin Clark out for 19 consecutive games, any team would face challenges. But good coaches find ways to maximize what they have available, and we're not seeing that level of adaptation from White. The defensive schemes are outdated, the offensive sets are predictable, and there's no sense of urgency or accountability. When your star player is getting into heated exchanges from the bench because she's frustrated with what she's seeing, that tells you everything you need to know about the current state of this program. Let's be real about where this Indiana team stands right now. The Fever's record stands at 21-19, and they're barely hanging on to a playoff spot. Every game from here on out is essentially a must-win situation, and this team hasn't shown the consistency or mental toughness needed for a playoff run. The Western Conference is loaded with talent, and Indiana is going to have to go through some serious competition if they want to make any noise in the postseason. But based on what we've seen lately, I'm not confident they can handle that level of pressure. Here's the harsh reality. Without Caitlin Clark, this team lacks the elite-level talent needed to compete with the top tier of the WNBA. They've got solid role players like Hull and some decent pieces, but championship teams need superstars. And right now, their superstar is watching from the sidelines. The good news is that recent medical evaluations confirmed that no additional injuries or damage were discovered regarding Clark's condition. But with no clear timetable for her return, the team has to find a way to stay afloat without her. Mitchell has been doing her best to carry the offensive load, but she can't do it alone. Powers has shown flashes of brilliance, but consistency has been an issue. The role players are doing their jobs, but role players don't win championships by themselves. If Indiana wants to salvage this season and make a legitimate playoff run, several things need to happen immediately. First, Stephanie White needs to completely overhaul the defensive system. The current schemes aren't working, and teams are exploiting the weaknesses game after game. They need to get back to basics: communication, rotations, and effort. Defense wins championships, and right now, Indiana isn't even playing average defense. Second, the offensive system needs to be simplified. Without Clark on the floor, they're trying to run plays that require a level of basketball IQ and court vision that simply isn't there. Focus on what this roster can do well: move the ball, create open looks for shooters, and attack the rim with purpose. Third, the role players need to accept bigger responsibilities. Hull has shown she can handle it, but players like Powers and others need to step up consistently. There can't be any passengers on a playoff team. Fourth, the mental toughness has to improve dramatically. The way this team responds to adversity, whether it's a bad call, a missed shot, or technical difficulties, shows a lack of championship mentality. Great teams use adversity as fuel. This Indiana team seems to crumble under pressure. Finally, they need to figure out how to maximize whatever time they get with Caitlin Clark when she returns. The chemistry between Clark and the rest of the roster hasn't been fully developed, and they're running out of time to build that connection. Look, I want to see Indiana succeed. The city deserves a winner, the fans deserve better, and players like Lexie Hall deserve to be in playoff games, making big-time plays. But wanting something and earning something are two different things. Right now, this team is playing with no identity, no consistent effort, and no sense of urgency despite their precarious playoff position. The drama surrounding Caitlin Clark's heated exchange with DeWanna Bonner shows that the competitive fire is still there, but fire without direction just burns everything down. If Clark can come back healthy and this team can find some defensive consistency, they might be able to make some noise in the first round of the playoffs. But championship aspirations? Those are going to have to wait until next season. The front office needs to make some serious decisions this offseason. Pay Lexie Hall what she's worth, evaluate whether Stephanie White is the right coach for this roster, and build a supporting cast that can maximize Caitlin Clark's incredible talents. This season isn't over yet, but the clock is ticking. Indiana has maybe 10 games left to figure it out, and based on what we've seen lately, that might not be enough time. What do you think? Can Indiana turn this around and make a legitimate playoff run? Or are we watching a season slip away? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more WNBA analysis that tells you what everyone else is afraid to say. The Fever faithful deserve better than what they're getting right now. The question is, will this organization do what it takes to deliver?